Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Blacks in Technology Bit Tech Talk podcast. This is podcast episode number 91 with Annyce Davis, Crushing Code at the Washington Post. I'm your host this evening. My name is Greg Greenlee, and if this is your first time listening to the podcast, you can check out Blacks in Technology at www.blacksintechnology.net. You can also follow us on Twitter. We're at Black in Technology. That's BLKINTECHNOLOGY. We're also on Facebook, and that's facebook.com/Blacks in Technology. And we also have an ever-growing LinkedIn group under Blacks in Technology. If you are on Twitter right now, if you have any questions for our guests, tweet them using the hashtag BitTechTalk, BITTECHTALK, BitTechTalk. BitTechTalk is a podcast. It's a show where we talk to people of color who are engineers, innovators, educators, inventors, and entrepreneurs doing amazing things in the world of technology. This podcast is where they share their experiences, ideas, knowledge, and perspective on tech with the Bit community. Blacks in Technology is a tech-focused community and media organization, and we're focused on increasing diversity in technology. We're always focused on forming new partnerships and opportunities to assist our members with their continued professional growth and development. So if you want to partner with us, send us an email to contact us at blacksintechnology.net. Any general inquiries or inquiries related to sponsorship. So if you ever want to sponsor one of these fabulous podcasts, send those also to contact us at blacksintechnology.net. And so announcements. What do we have for announcements today? So I think I mentioned last podcast, Self-Conference is coming up in Detroit. That's May 20th and 21st. We were there last year. We're going to be there again this year. And when I say we, I mean Blacks in Technology. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a meetup. So last year we had a pretty nice turnout for a meetup. Hopefully we'll have even more people there this year. And if you've never been to Self-Conference, it's a mix of fantastic tech presentations, insightful tech talks, and it's located in downtown Detroit. It's 2 whole days in the middle of May, filled with mobile, web, hardware, software, process, and team-oriented talks to help you expand your knowledge and meet other technically minded folks and immerse yourself in Detroit's tech renaissance. So that's Self-Conference, and that's selfconference.org, I believe. And that's happening in May 20th and 21st. Also, Closure West is happening April 15th and 16th in Seattle, Washington. That's the Closure West Conference. If you're interested in the Closure language, definitely check that out. We are a diversity sponsor for them, and there are free tickets available. So check our website out here in the next couple of days. We'll put something up. If you're interested in attending Closure West, if you're out that way and you want to get a free ticket, check us out, and maybe we can hook you up. So what's going on in the world of jobs? There's a few job postings on the website right now. Sparkbox out of Dayton, Ohio is looking for a front-end designer. Gravity Tank, they're out of Chicago, Illinois. They're looking for an interaction developer. Grand Circus out of Detroit, they're looking for a coding bootcamp instructor, preferably knowledge in Java or .NET and C#. And Stripe. The payment company out of San Francisco is looking for a recruiting coordinator. Check us out on Slack as well. If you check our website out and you do a search for Slack, you'll see the invite form in that article. We're up to 415 members. It's pretty big. Once we started out not too long ago, and we're growing pretty fast. This week we had a surge in the number of people participating. So we're up to 415. I tweeted out earlier this week that we are up to 400, and just in the last day or two, we shot up. So check us out on Slack. There's always some very interesting conversations going on in there, related to anything from software to hardware to virtualization to even social issues. So we talk about it all. It's pretty active. Startup of the week, that's Blacks in Technologies. Our startup of the week focuses on spotlighting and promoting tech-based startup companies founded by people of color. I have people of color in top leadership positions. If you like your startup company to be featured, check us out. Check any of the past articles, the past Startup of the Week articles out, and there's a link at the bottom where you can fill out a form for a Startup of the Week. So what I'm trying to do is I figure there should be at least 52 startups that are led by people of color or founded by people of color somewhere in the United States or wherever. I should be able to get at least 52 participants in this, and I should be able to have one every week for the next year. So far, I think we've done 3 or 4, and I've got some more in queue. Right now, our startup of the week is Retrace Health, and they are making primary care affordable, convenient, and personal. So check that out, Retrace Health, on our startup of the week. And if you like your startup feature, fill out the form that's on our website there. So check us out and get your startup feature. All right, and let's see what's next. We're going to get right into our guest. I'm happy to bring on Annyce Davis. Annyce is an Android Google developer expert. She has her BS in computer engineering from the University of Maryland, College Park. She has spent the past 5 years developing applications for the Android ecosystem across multiple form factors. She is also an international conference speaker and author, sharing her knowledge of Android development with others. In the past, she has worked for Lockheed Martin and NASA. And right now, we're going to get into that. I'm going to let the cat out the bag. But welcome to the show, Annyce.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure is all ours. Definitely glad that you could join us. So tell us give us a little bit about your background. Where are you from, your education, how you got started in tech?
So I grew up in Washington, D.C., and around, I guess, like 9 or 10, we moved to Maryland, Prince George's County. And so that's where I attended high school, Eleanor Roosevelt. And there they actually had a science and technology program that I was able to participate in. And from there, I went to University of Maryland, College Park, as you mentioned, and I did my degree in computer engineering, which was actually very fun. A cross-section between computer science and electrical engineering. So it was nice to be the guinea pig at the time for that new program that Maryland was running.
Nice. So I attended college for computer network engineering, and one of the things, and it's sort of like what your curriculum was like. So there was, computer networking involved, but there was also this piece that I didn't realize at the time was engineering. So you actually took a lot of actual engineering classes, for instance, like AC circuits, DC circuits. You took like digital analysis, digital sequential logic. So were those some of the classes that you had to partake in as well?
Yeah, so we had to do a lot of work with like circuits, understanding capacitors and resistors and how those things work together. A lot of classes on like thermodynamics, digital signal processing. It's interesting that I use none of that today, but I had to learn it at the time.
Same here. It's funny because I loved it while I was doing it, right? So I'm in class and we had a digital combinational logic, and that was the introduction to circuitry. And so we would have these breadboards and all these integrated circuits, and we would take wires and connect the leads and everything like that. And we would have these switches that we would switch on and off to make sure that the circuit that we built actually worked. And I love doing that stuff. I love the hands-on aspect of it, and I love learning about how electronics and everything work. but I use none of that right now, none whatsoever. Even when, there was a class that I took, it was sort of like, or I guess it was assembly. It was microprocessors, I think the class was, and we did some assembly programming on a real, probably irrelevant processor, some Motorola process, probably something used for like embedded, some embedded circuitry or something. But I love that class. I even love, doing assembly, but I don't do any assembly programming or any of that stuff. All that stuff is now lost. It's funny because I just went back. I still have the books because, the college that I went to, it seemed like they changed books like every term. So like even you'll buy the books and the books will be like $100 and you'll go to turn them back in and we're like, nope, we're not using that book this term or something like that. So I have all these books. I have one on principle of electric circuits and another one, digital fundamentals. And I just picked that back up and started reading it again because I kind of wanted to get a little bit more familiar with, some of the past knowledge that I lost, I guess. So do you catch yourself doing anything like that, or are you working with like any type of circuitry or hardware at all, like even in your spare time?
Absolutely not. I pretty much, by my junior year in college, I realized that programming was for me, and I just finished the electrical engineering stuff because I had to. I was already so far into my degree, and then I never looked back.
Gotcha. Excellent. So you majored in computer engineering. Well, so what was your experience like, especially being a woman of color? We hear, a bunch of stories out there about, people feeling kind of outcasted or not getting any attention that other students might get. What was your experience like?
So just based on my personality, like I'm just very much an introvert. So I definitely kept to myself in school. And also there was just other dynamic is the fact that I was on a scholarship and I wanted to make sure I completed my degree in that 4-year period because I didn't want to have any student loans after graduating. So I was just super focused, really heads down, trying to push through and do well and maintain my scholarship in school. But with that being said, by my junior year, I was inducted into the Electrical and Computer Engineering Honor Society, and that sort of gave me the opportunity to be, to just be more involved with people. So I would participate more in the chapter events, and I was the fundraising chair, and so then I would also join study groups and things after that. And it actually was a good experience interacting with fellow students for a change at that point.
Right. So were there any challenges that you did face, and if so, how did you overcome those?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest challenge was being one of the few women in the program. So whenever there was lab work or maybe a group project, it just seemed like everyone else knew each other and they would quickly pair up. And so then you end up on this team where it's the people no one else wanted to work with. So I'd often have to do most of the work. And then even on certain projects, like I'd go to the computer lab and they would be individual assignments, but I'd see groups of people working together as a team to complete the work, which of course was extremely unfair. But I guess how did I overcome it is that it forced me to see, okay, this is a real world. It's not fair. And I need to stand on my own. And I think it just pushed me to become a better developer and to do really well with reaching out to professors or teaching assistants when I wasn't getting that support from my classmates.
Were your professors, were they pretty responsive with any questions or any issues that you had?
I would say that my professors did a pretty decent job, but I think it's also because of my approach. I just kind of coming from a different angle, I spent 1 year as a middle school teacher. And just to think about myself as a teacher and what students I sort of took to, or what students I assisted the most, it wasn't necessarily the smartest person in the class, but it was the people who tried the hardest. And so going back to college, I just tried so hard. I would do all the homework assignments. So I wouldn't just show up at office hours like, please help me. They would look and they'd say, okay, you do all the homework. All right, so let me show you this one problem. And I think that was part of how I was able to have that better working relationship with my professors.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good tip. Showing that initiative and, having your teachers respond to that in a positive way. You hear a lot of horror stories out there about, being ignored or teachers not responding or not being responsive to your needs and things like that. Because we are not there to actually see, you never know like what the dynamics really is. But that's a good way to actually try to build that rapport between you and your teacher is, show them that initiative from the beginning, and maybe that'll help, bring that relationship a little bit closer. Good advice.
Right.
So what was the very first program? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. What was the very first program that you wrote?
So my first memorable coding project was in Visual Basic, and it was a very simple program that exported telescope calibration data into this Excel spreadsheet. And I just remember it so well because I wrote it when I was interning at NASA. And it was just such a great feeling of accomplishment to know that a student in high school can, do something to help contribute to the success of NASA. So that was just like really empowering for me as my first really memorable project.
That's pretty cool. We had a young lady on our last podcast that Camille Eddy. She's a mechanical engineer, and she has done some work in the past with NASA. What was that? I mean, what was that experience like? Just actually, we're gonna get into that later. I want to ask you about your experience at NASA. So, let me ask you about mentors. Did you have any mentors coming up, like in high school? To kind of pushed you into, I wouldn't say push, but kind of helped you along in your like technology journey?
I didn't really have any mentors, and I was the first person in my family to, even go to college to get their bachelor's degree. So I didn't have a lot of examples of people just kind of close to me in my life who did it. But we're in the age of technology, so you can definitely kind of go online and you like make your own mentors. And that's sort of what I've been doing over the years, is just finding people doing what I want to do and staying in touch with them as best I can, via the internet. And that has proved to be very helpful. Right.
Excellent. So, and I'm going to plug the Blacks in Technology Slack channel right now, because one of the things that I always like to tell people about the BIT community is that if you're looking for that person, that mentor, somebody that you can talk to, our community is very, very good at doing things like that. So you can come to the site, you can ask questions, you can give advice yourself if you want to, but, it's a heck of a resource for people who are looking to just learn a little bit more or learn how to get into a career in tech or whatever. There's always people out, within our community that's willing to help and willing to answer questions. And like I said, we're up to over, we got 415 members in our Slack channel. A lot of them are very active. So, and we have a coding channel within our Slack channel. So if you ever want to pop in, and there's a lot of, very knowledgeable developers there, I'll send you, what I'll do is after the podcast is over, I'll email you the link if you want to join. So, yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. So I really like that.
Excellent. So how did you get into Android development? What sparked that?
So about 5 or 6 years ago, I finally moved on from BlackBerry, and I got my first Android phone. So
wow.
Of course, yeah, I know, right? I was a very diehard, loyal BlackBerry fan. But I finally moved on. I got my first Android phone, and since I already knew Java, I really wanted to learn how to make an app for my phone. So I just taught myself Android development using whatever I could find on the internet. And then I started to take a few classes online that were free. And from there, I just kind of kept going and really enjoy doing Android work.
So what was it about Android that kind of, I guess, brung you in and interested you that much that you would want to do that literally for your as a career?
I think what I really like about Android is the sort of scrappy nature of the programming. It's not all high shine and high polish, I'd say, like the iOS ecosystem. And I sort of like digging through Stack Overflow, trying to find the code snippet that's going to help solve my problem. And I really, really love the Android community. I feel that they're low judgment and very welcoming. And I just think it's a great community for people who are excited about, what Google has to offer in Android technology. So that's also something that kind of keeps me here.
Excellent. And I know what you mean as far as it's kind of that thing with I guess that dynamic between like Linux and Windows, right? So Linux is that type of operating system. Everything is not going to work right out the box, and if it doesn't, then you really got to do. It's. I used to call it, and it's changing a little bit now because there's a lot of distros that are coming out that are pretty similar or relatively easy to operate. So if a person was using Windows for a long time and they switch to it, it's a change, but they can still get to it. It's real GUI based and things like that, like Ubuntu, for instance, and like Mint, Linux Mint. But before, it was really, you had to be on top of your stuff if you wanted to get into, if you wanted to learn Linux. And I like that about it because it made you think and it made you understand what was going on within the operating system. And when things didn't work, you had to go to, the forums and go on the internet, and you had to Google things, and you had to change configuration files to get certain things to work. But, there's a certain self-gratification with doing things like that and learning the innards of the operating system and then fixing something that maybe didn't work before. It keeps your mind working as opposed to, other operating systems that just magically seem to work with everything, So I definitely understand where you're coming from. Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone wanting to get into Android development? How can people get started?
I would say one of the best ways to start is taking a free online course, just to see if it's really even for you. I took a few classes with Coursera. There's also some really good ones on Udacity, and these things are available for free. So once you take your first course, hopefully you'll become addicted, and then from there you just really want to get involved with the community. So go to your local meetup, attend conferences. All of those things help accelerate your learning.
Excellent. Yeah, and I love Coursera. They have an excellent Python course that I've been taking, and it's great. I love the videos. I love the teaching style. I love the way that they have it set up. So it's just not. You know what? I tried Code Academy before, and there was something about Code Academy that it just didn't stick. And I know there's a lot of people out there that use Code Academy, but I think Code Academy, it gives you a little bit too much. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're as you're going through the courses on Code Academy, and then you get to like a challenge or something like that, it actually gives you a little bit too much of the code, and it doesn't allow you to kind of think about it and figure things out. It almost kind of puts the puzzle pieces there for you, and then like leaves one puzzle piece out, and then it's like, oh, I only got one puzzle piece left. It must fit here, but that doesn't help you be able to kind of retain what you're learning, because they give you a little bit too much. And Coursera doesn't do that. It's at least not the Python course. The Python course that I'm taking, so you'll go through the video lectures. There's a book that accompanies it as well, and then at the end they give you a test. So they'll test you on some of the syntax and things like that, and then there's an exercise or two that you have to. They'll give you the parameters, and they'll actually give you what the output is supposed to look like. But then you have to fill in everything else. And that recall, is what helps you to remember what you just learned. And so that's helped me a lot more than Code Academy has.
Yeah, most courses I've taken with Coursera have a very similar format. And the best part is that they're taught by professors in universities who are teaching these courses to students who are paying for them. So it's really nice to be able to participate in this and get such high quality content as well.
So when did you decide that the Android development was going to be like your career, that you were going to use that to work at some of these, because you worked at some pretty notable companies. When did you decide that, hey, this is what I'm going to do?
So I think one thing that really helped me is a book I read, the Software Developer's Life Manual. And it's just a really great book by John Sonmez. And he's basically talking about how developers can really look at themselves as their own brand, business, and as a career instead of just having a job. And one of the core concepts is that you need to specialize. And so for me, anyway, I have just always been really interested in Java. So in one way, that's a specialty. But I was also doing a lot of like web frameworks and back-end API design and things like that. And it just sort of had me all over the place. And it's hard to be an expert if you're doing, 4 or 5 different things. So I just picked what I was the most passionate about, and that's Android. And so that's when I decided to pour even more of my energy into kind of perfecting my craft when it comes to Android development.
Excellent. And this podcast is called Crushing Code at the Washington Post. I don't know. That's not entirely true right now. But let me actually, because I'm trying to remember. So I think I reached out to you on Twitter, and it was because of that tagline that you had in your Twitter profile. It was Crushing Code at the Washington Post, and I thought that is such a powerful tagline. like I gotta have her on a podcast. Where did that come from?
So actually, it's funny because a few years ago, I read this article, and it was sort of critiquing the bro grammar culture that has sort of popped up in tech. And
right.
One of the phrases from the article was like, do you bro down? Do you crush code? Then you might be a programmer, you know? And it just,
okay.
I just thought it was hilarious how they worded it. And so for me, I think, well, you know, I guess I kind of crush code, or let's take this sort of negative connotation of just this men's only world of, you know, broing down and crushing code, and let's apply it to myself, because I have that same sort of intensity and passion when it comes to programming. So that's why I thought it would be great to be in my little Twitter bio.
Nice. You know what? I love it, and this is why I love it. And it's similar to the tagline that Blacks in Technology use in a way, because how powerful it's. Crushing code sounds a lot more powerful than, hey, I'm coding, right? It kind of exhibits this or exudes this kind of, you know, this confidence that, you know, you're not just there coding, you're crushing code. And that's what drew me to it. And the reason why I say that kind of relates to Blacks in Technology's tagline is because our tagline is stomping the divide, right? And I always tell people how that came about was that I was tired of hearing, oh, let's bridge the divide. It sounded so passive to me, right? And I always thought, like, I don't want to just build a bridge and just cross over, or you know, we still are living on opposite sides or whatever, and every once in a while I can wander over that bridge. I want to crush that bridge. I don't want there to be anything at all. I want this to be, you know, I want it to be combined, or, you know, the two sides together. So I want to stomp the divide, because I don't think there should be a divide there. And that's what crushing code kind of reminded me of, is that tagline. So that's what really drew me in. So, but cool. You're not crushing code at the Washington Post anymore. So, but you've worked at some pretty notable companies. You worked interned at NASA. You worked at Lockheed Martin, Washington Post. So tell me, these are pretty high-profile companies. Well, what do you look for in a company?
So I look for a challenge. I want to continue evolving as a developer, continue honing my skills. So if there's a unique problem to be solved and I think I can make a difference, then that's the place that I want to be.
Got you. And so you just, before the podcast started, you mentioned to me that you're no longer at Washington Post and you're going to be starting somewhere starting Monday. Are you able to tell us where you're going to be heading to?
Sure. I'm going to be working as an Android developer for a startup called Off Grid Electric. And they're actually a social impact company, and they have offices in California and Tanzania. So I'll be working remotely. And the mission is one thing that really drew me in is the fact that they're trying to provide affordable solar power to homes in rural Africa. So it's going to be a very exciting challenge to work on the Android applications for this company. And I'm just really looking forward to it.
Well, congratulations on that. Definitely wish you much success. So let me ask you this. So you went from all these, you know, really established companies to a startup. What played into that? Was it some of the social impact work that they're doing?
I'll say yes. It's part of the social impact, working on something that helps to change people's lives for the better. Also, I think it's, as I mentioned before, I really like the challenge. So you're trying to design an Android application that is going to have to work with limited internet connectivity. So that is just a very interesting, this sort of online, offline challenge, as we like to refer to it. So that's going to push me as a developer to find new solutions, think of new algorithms, try new libraries, things that I've never had to deal with before, being in the sort of environment where we assume everyone always has access to the internet. So I'm just excited about, tackling that new challenge.
Interesting. And so out of these companies, how did you prepare for each of these, companies? Like, the interview process, did you prepare for one differently than you did the other? How did that work out?
So definitely it was a different process for all of them. For instance, for Lockheed Martin, what's sort of interesting about my time there, when I first graduated from college, I was a little disillusioned because I guess maybe this was my first whiff of the discrimination that exists in tech. Despite graduating in the top of my class, I did not have any job offers. And I kept being turned down by people saying, well, you don't have enough experience. You don't have enough experience. Where I would see my fellow classmates getting really great job offers from same companies that I applied to. And they didn't have jobs. And I was working at NASA at the time. So it was just a very weird experience there. But I interviewed at Lockheed Martin, and they told me something similar. Oh, you don't really have a lot of experience, but we'll take you on to work in our help desk team. So my first 5 months at Lockheed Martin, I was actually working as a help desk technician. And then so despite having, the degree in computer engineering, and at that point I realized, okay, this is really not where I see my career heading. I need to leave. But I was doing a great job. They really liked me as an employee. And so they offered to switch me to the development team. So that's actually how I started my officially first job as a developer at Lockheed Martin. And I ended up staying there for 5 years. But, it's just very interesting how things work out. And you may assume it's about, academics, especially for your first job. But really not the case, unfortunately.
Interesting. Wow, that kind of hit me. that's wow. That kind of hit me. I didn't think it would affect me, just hearing that. And I know that those type of things go on, but when you may read about something like that, and it's a kind of I guess a little bit of a disconnect when you're just reading it. But when you're hearing it, you're hearing somebody, go through that. It really kind of pisses me off. Like, here you are with you interned at NASA. You have a degree in computer engineering, and what's so different about that is it's not. It's a mix. So it's a mix of computer science and computer engineering. And people don't understand when you say, for instance, if I tell somebody that, hey, I went to school for computer network engineering, they hear the networking part, right? And they think, oh, this guy is a network guy, he knows routers and switches and things like that. But it's like, no, there is an engineering portion of this whole entire thing, the low-level circuitry that you probably never had to touch in your life. And, I took courses that you didn't take, and courses that, require serious intelligence in order to be able to pass these courses. So you had that, you had your internship at NASA, and they relegated you to working help desk. They didn't want to put you, not even an entry-level role of, not even like a junior developer. It's we're going to put you, that's, wow, that rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, it was definitely a hard pill to swallow initially, but I think it was good for me because it helped me to see more of the real world, and little by little over the years, I guess it's the whatever rose-colored glasses they say. You start to see the world for what it really is, and then now you have to work it to your advantage, right?
Right. It's funny. We were having a discussion in our Slack channel yesterday, and it was a discussion about an article that we were having a conversation about that just recently was out on the internet about a young woman who was working at a certain notable tech company, and she has some issues with that company and things like that. And we were talking about, you know, various different things, or looking at it at different angles, and expounding on the whole entire situation. But one person made a comment about you know, some of the things that people were saying during the conversation about how the person acted during this whole situation. There were some missteps that this person was having, and some people were, you know, basically saying, well, you know, this person probably shouldn't have done this, or, you know, they should have done this differently, and so the person, there was a young woman who kind of mentioned, like, hey, like, you know, she should have done that, but, you know, kind of over how hostile that work environment was, and you know, somebody saying, like, you know, that's part of life. Like, you know, there's going to be situations or jobs that you work at, you know, yeah, this job shouldn't react this way, or, you know, your working environment shouldn't be hostile, but the fact of the matter is, it's like that. And you know, there's not a magic wand that's going to, you know, that you can wave that one, you know, that it's going to fix everything. You have to learn how to navigate that, right? And this is not so much as trying to put down or call her out for her actions. It's more like, hey, you know, we need to navigate differently in these environments. And what goes for somebody else, another person of a different color, doesn't necessarily go for us. And we have to be aware of that. And so with that, we have to learn how to navigate within that space. And there were some serious missteps that this person had. And yeah, you know, we feel bad for, you know, the things that she had to go through, but we also want people to know that you can't do these type of things in a work environment and think it's okay because your counterpart has done the same thing. That's just not how it works, unfortunately. Should it work like that? Yeah, of course it should. But we don't live in this ideal world. We live in the world that we live in.
The real world.
Things just aren't, right. And things just aren't like that. And you know, it's hard to face sometimes, but that's, you know, it's just how it is.
Yep.
So, what are some important things, you know, working at NASA, working at Lockheed Martin, working at the Washington Post, look great on a resume, but what are some of the important things that you've learned that helped you, you know, in each step of the way excel in your career?
The most important thing I learned is that you need other people. I spent so much time just focused on being awesome on my own, and it never gets you the recognition or the visibility that you deserve. It's only when you start building your network and involving other people in your growth that you see that sort of like exponential acceleration in your career. And it took me a while to finally get that. But now, I mean, that is just really key to my current and future successes.
So what was that aha moment that you finally realized, like, hey, this is the way I'm doing it is not working for me. I need to switch it up and do it like this and see what the outcome is?
I think for me, the aha moment was a few years ago when it was sort of like around the time when promotions were being given out, and I was, on a team, and like maybe 6 other people, no joke, 6 other people all got promoted, and I didn't.
Oh, wow.
But on top of it, we had this like annual meeting, and they sort of list out all the key projects and, whether or not they were successful and met their goals. And then my project was the only one that was successful. So it's just like irony of irony, that you work super hard and you achieve great things. But if you don't have that visibility and you don't have that network, it just goes hidden. It's like you almost didn't do it. And one of like my really great mentors and role models, Chuki Chan, she always says that hidden work doesn't count, period. Like hidden work doesn't count. So everything you do, make sure someone sees it. And it's just so, so true.
So, and how do you actually put that or implement that philosophy? So are you, hey boss, look, I did it. I know it's not like
no.
that,
So actually, I'm pretty strategic about it. So, for instance, what did I start doing? Monday morning, I would send an email to my boss, and I would say, hi, how are you? Here are my items for this week that I plan on achieving. Here are the related tasks. Please let me know if you have other priorities. Then at the end of the week, I follow up with, hi, just want to let you know how things turned out for me this week. These are the things I was able to accomplish. In addition, I did the following items. So first, that's visibility with my own, direct manager. Having a personal blog, right? So now you're getting external visibility. Co-organizing local meetups, speaking at conferences, being an author. All these things are increasing your visibility, and really sort of like your net worth, basically.
I love it. That's what, the Blacks in Technology platform is all about, that visibility and giving the exposure to people who normally probably wouldn't have it. So I love what you just said about, increasing your own visibility and doing certain things externally that's going to help increase it. So great job. Great. So you speak at conferences quite frequently now. So how did you get started with that?
So I started small. I would speak, at business meetings or, lead brown bags during lunchtime. And then I started speaking at local meetups. And finally, my official first conference talk, 2 women in the Android community reached out to me and said, hey, we really would love for you to speak at this conference that's coming up in New York. And if you need help, preparing your proposal, we're willing to give you feedback and help you in order to submit. So, I took a chance and I did it. And that's how I got started giving my very first conference talk.
So how many conferences have you spoke at so far? Too many to name, or?
I want to say maybe I've spoken at like 5 now. And I started last September. Nice.
So how do you prepare to give a talk? What's your preparation like?
So normally I keep a list of ideas that I want to present on. So things that I'm sort of feeling passionate about, or a title for a conference talk that pops into my head. I keep all those things together in Trello and Evernote. And as I'm going about my developer life, I'll grab little articles or clippings from books and things, and I sort of combine them all together in one place. So once I submit a talk and it's accepted, that's when I'll go into more detail and I'll create an outline of what I want to cover. Then from there, I'll work on my slides. And I do put a lot of time into my slides because I want the attendees to be entertained and learn something at the same time. So I do actually prepare pretty far in advance. Like as soon as my talk is accepted, I sort of start that process.
Interesting. So what are some of the notable conferences that you spoke at?
So my first conference was very notable. It was DroidCon, New York City, and they have over 800 developers who come. And it was really exciting because my talk was in the main auditorium, and it was a really good turnout, and that's how I made a lot of my current connections within the Android community, was by means of that first conference. And then from there, I was invited to come speak at Android Toronto. So it was actually my first time in Canada was flying out there to speak at a conference. And it was just a really amazing experience for me. And Canadians are so friendly. So if you ever have a chance to go, it's just a really, really great time going out there. So those are two of my favorite conferences that I've spoken at.
And it's good to know about Toronto because there's some pretty exciting news that coming up for Blacks in Technology that involves Linux and involves Toronto. That's all I'm going to say right now. There's going to be a press release coming out pretty soon. That's going to be it's pretty exciting stuff, but it's going to allow me for the first time, hopefully, to visit Toronto. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's really cool.
So let me ask you this: what are some this is probably going to happen. This trip to Toronto in August. What are some things that I should definitely do while I'm there?
So there's this, I guess, the Starbucks of Canada called Tim Hortons. You should definitely go there and get their breakfast sandwich. It was really good. Okay. It was some kind of bread that I've never had before, and the locals go crazy for it. Let's see. I didn't do a lot of sightseeing, but you'll just be impressed by how clean it is and how friendly everyone is. It's like New York, except really clean and friendly. That's the best way I can describe Toronto.
I hope nobody from New York is listening. But of course, if you are from, right, if you're from New York, you probably are shaking your head like, hey, it's telling the truth.
I love New York. I'm just saying,
We are dirty, and we can be assholes at times. Well, that's good to know. I'm looking forward to that. So, what advice would you give to other people looking to become speakers? Because there's always that person that wants to speak and may be a little bit too intimidated to speak. So, what advice would you give that person?
I would just say start small. Maybe you can give some short presentations to your coworkers a few times a year, maybe just like during lunch. And then don't feel intimidated if you feel you don't know it all, because no one knows it all, even if they act like it. So just share what you do know in a way that's beneficial for others. So whenever I start, having that whole, imposter syndrome, or I don't know enough about X to talk about it, send a tweet and then just sit back and watch how many people go, wow, I never knew that. And that can kind of help cure your fear, because there's always someone who's sort of one step behind where you are technically that could benefit from your expertise.
Very, very good advice. I haven't spoken at a conference yet, but I've spoke to like colleges and small classrooms and things like that. But I'm looking for my first. I've submitted some talks. I haven't had one accepted yet. I think I might need a lesson in how to submit a talk, but I definitely do want to do that. But I'm always worried. That's one of those things. Even though I've been in the industry for umpteen years or whatever, there's still always that do I really know what I'm talking about? And it's especially if you have to go up in front of an entire audience, and then you think like, oh my God, I'm going to be exposed. And I always refer back to I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Collateral with Jamie Foxx, Tom Cruise, Jada Pinkett Smith.
Maybe.
there's okay. So Jada Pinkett Smith in the movie, she's a lawyer, right? And Jamie Foxx is this he's this cab driver, and she's his fare, right? And they're driving and they're talking and things like that, and so she starts telling him about how she prepares for a trial, right? And she says like every time before a trial, she goes over, the trial notes and things like that. And she says, then she goes and she throws up. And she says she throws up because she feels like, she's been faking this whole time. And as soon as she steps into the courtroom, people are going to expose her for what she really is. And that people are going to think that she doesn't know what she's talking about. And then, after she does that, maybe she didn't say she throws up, but she said she does something. But then she says, she kind of gets herself together, and she goes back over her notes, and then she, come court day, she's fine. But every time somebody talks about imposter syndrome, I always refer them to that clip because it really touches on like the core mentality of like imposter syndrome. Like nobody, no matter how long somebody has been in the industry or no matter how many wins they've had in their careers, they always feel like they don't know enough. And so I always, kind of refer to that and say, hey, take a look at this. This is probably how you feel. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, hey, it's going to be all right. It's, she survived it.
you just got to do it. Yeah, you just got to do it. And it was really interesting. I was listening to a podcast, a Tim Ferriss podcast, actually, with Jamie Foxx. And he said, what's on the other side of fear? Nothing. He's like, you're so afraid of doing something, but what is really the worst that can happen? And most of the time, nothing. So just go for it and just do it. And I will say the same thing about speaking. The benefits just like so far outweigh the negatives, and it really helps to accelerate your career.
Definitely. You're also a published author, and you've done some training videos. I've seen with O'Reilly Media. How did you become involved in that?
So interesting story. Someone contacted me on Twitter. They saw the title and description of one of my upcoming conference talks and said, that would be a great course for O'Reilly. And literally from there, I had a deal to make some videos with O'Reilly. It was really that simple, just right time, right place, and saying yes to an opportunity.
Very nice. And what are the videos about?
So the course is called Developing High-Quality Android Applications, and it's more for intermediate Android developers, and it basically walks you through the importance of testing, how to do it in Android. We talk about static code analysis and just the various components of your application that can just really make it more maintainable and of higher quality.
Excellent. And so how can people actually find those videos? They just go to O'Reilly's site and.
Yeah, you can search it on O'Reilly. I also have a link in the sidebar on my personal blog at adavis.info.
Okay.
And I think I also have a link in my Twitter bio as well.
Okay, excellent. So between speaking, writing, coding, training, which one of those do you like the best, and why?
I definitely like coding the best. It's where I'm most in my element, just kind of me and my thoughts attempting to solve a problem using code. And that's, I guess that's my happy place. So I definitely love coding the best, but the other things are a close second.
Nice. So what's next for you? What's some of your future plans?
So what's next? I want to continue conference speaking, and I've never been to Europe, so I have applied to speak at a few conferences in Europe this year, and I'm really hoping those things pan out. So I think it'll be a great opportunity for me to go and see more of this big wide world. Also, Monday morning, I'll be starting my new job as Android developer for Off-Grid Electric, and just excited about those new challenges and opportunities as well.
Excellent. Well, good luck on the conferences. Hopefully, you get to speak there and get to visit and explore Europe.
Thank you very much.
So before we wrap up, how can other people follow you? How can they contact you? How can they, find out more about your training videos or your books or whatever, anything that you're doing? How can they do that?
So I'm pretty active on Twitter, and I'm at BrownGirlDev, minus the O and I. So that's definitely the best way to get in touch with me.
Excellent. Well, Annyce, I definitely wish you the best of luck and wish you much success in the future. I want to thank you for coming on to the show and sharing your life with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Take care. So that is it for this episode of the Blacks in Technology Big Tech Talk podcast. I want to thank our guest, Annyce Davis. If you like what you heard tonight and you want to let us know, or if you have any suggestions or comments, email them to us at contactus@blacksintechnology.net. What's coming up? Join us in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, March 31st. So we have Tamika Reed and Dion Parler. They are Women in Linux. Women in Linux is a dynamic group who celebrate Linux-centric women in technology, exposing women to other tech careers using the foundation of Linux, and a viable resource for obtaining and sustaining a thriving career in tech. Should be fun because I'm a Linux enthusiast. I met Tamika and Dion at, where did I meet them at? PuppetConf? Yeah, it was PuppetConf, 2015. Very knowledgeable, very excellent women. Going to be happy to have them on here in 2 weeks. So tune in then, same time, same channel. Remember, tech yourself before you wreck yourself. Take care. Have a good night.
Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology.